Raise.
Raise. 12 million. Heads up.
Everybody knew how to play poker actually around that table, except for one, Daniel. He had no clue. He sucked. Hi, I'm Mads Mikkelsen, and these are some of my iconic characters, some people tell me. Casino Royale. Weeping blood comes merely from a derangement of the tear duct, my dear General. Nothing sinister. That was one of the things that the director actually insisted on, because a real Bond villain has something. Got golden teeth or an extra nipple or something. So he went for the eye thing. Daniel, Craig, and I, and Marq and Campbell, we had a lot of ideas. Daniel came straight from like indie films, smaller films, and I also had my background in the pusher films. We discussed, among other things, the big torture scene, and we went down the rabbit hole, me and Daniel. We had so many ideas, and it was getting crazier and crazier. You could just see Martin going, guys, come back. It's a Bond film. Oh yeah, you're right, sorry. But he was quite open to look and experiment with the parameters of what you can do in a Bond film. I suppose our friend, Mr. White, will have told you that I have provided reliable banking services for many other freedom fighters over the years.
Do you believe in God, Mr. Le Chief?
No. I believe in a reasonable rate of return. He's a normal person. He's not taking over the world. He's not one of those guys. He's in it for the money, and if Bond didn't bump into his way, they would never have met. It's not that he's after anyone. So obviously he's vulnerable. There's people above him, people who are used to violence in a different way than he is, and it's a different kind of villain, that's for sure. I played a lot of poker since I was a kid, so the game was not new to me. The hands we are playing are insane, so if you're a poker player, you'll go, what? We just wanted to make the nature of the betting believable, but the hands obviously had to be easily recognizable for an audience that doesn't play poker, so they were quite crazy hands. But yeah, everybody knew how to play poker actually around that table, except for one, Daniel. He had no clue. He sucked. And it was like, it was the worst thing ever that he, of all people, had to beat me and win all my money. It was like, this is wrong. Well, I got him back with the rope, so that's good. Dr. Strange. For well beyond time, because time is what enslaves us. Time is an insult. Death is an insult. That was like some glam rock from the 70s just coming up there. It looked good. Took forever, dude. We were sitting 3 hours in that chair every morning. We cut it down eventually, but in the beginning it was very elaborate. I think we ended up maybe an hour and 45, but it was still a long time, right? And it was annoying. It was just annoying to be wearing that. But luckily, I wasn't the only one. You can feel a little weird if you're the only one doing it. I had a whole gang of zealots doing the same. When you're in an action film, you do want to do stunts. And I'm not the worst in the world to do stunts. I'm a former gymnast and a dancer, so I'm pretty good at it. So I get a little disappointed, like I did little in the Bond film when I realized that the biggest stunt I was doing in that film was to fold two aces. It was like, this is not right. Do they know how good I am at this? Can I get a chopper scene right, So I got fulfilled with flying kung fu and wires and stuff. It was really fun to be part of. Bruce Lee, it was hard. In my generation, it was very hard not to be. When you were like a working class kid, that was him. Him and Buster Keaton were unrelated though, but I can see now why I fell for both of them. They have something in common. They have a certain presence and they have a minimalistic way of doing things that, Buster Keaton could do very little things and all of a sudden the sky would just open, right? And so I've always been fascinated by that without putting my finger on why. Why was fascinating. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And with this,
I will correct them all. You stole it. Then you stole it.
Everybody wanted their hands on the brilliant scientists that was working for the Nazis, and everybody was agreeing that they should just shut their eyes and not talk about it. I'm a history buff. I know quite a bit about that part. I also know that it was not only in the States that these things happened. It happened in, obviously in the Soviet Union to a degree, in UK as well. So we did look at a lot of photos of Werner von Braun in particular. And it was interesting to see, that there was a certain dandiness around him. He had a little curve in his hair, cool glasses. And he was just walking around, people and working with Americans as if there was no past. And that's shocking, but it's also interesting to see that with what kind of an ease that they just transformed from that period to the next.
Have we met? My memory's a little fuzzy. Are you still a Nazi?
I think I remember the most, obviously, working with these fantastic people and working with Harrison, of course, is the top thing. I mean, normally he would just see me wherever I was, randomly far away, and he would scream, "There goes a Nazi." Right, okay, thanks, Harrison. There would be like an entire new crew who didn't know the story, and everybody thought I was a Nazi. Great. So that was his way of warming up, and I liked it. He's a teenager in his energy and everything about him. He's a legend on so many levels, right? For his talent, for the stuff he's done, but he's predominantly, in my world, a legend because he doesn't behave like a legend. He just brings everything down to earth and makes everybody comfortable around him so we can make and create a scene that works. Hannibal. Before we begin, you must all be warned. Nothing here is vegetarian. Hannibal is a very different animal. He can be impulsive, but rarely. It's a choice if he does it. He's in complete control. He sees the world differently than we do. He's like a fallen angel. He just sees the opposite. He sees love where we see something horrifying. He sees beauty when we see something very, very ugly. For him, life is most interesting and most fantastic when it's on the threshold to death. Right in that moment, there's something beautiful happening in his world. So that's obviously a Corey way of thinking, but I don't necessarily have to go down that path. I can just substitute with something else that I find beautiful, something I cherish. And I think that's the best way to approach it as opposed to go down in a dark alley. Then go down in a beautiful alley. That's what he's doing. He's way too intelligent for anyone. I have no idea how he learned all these languages and how to cook, play the theremin and shoot bow and arrow to perfection, everything. It's like, he's a lifted character, right? And for some reason, he never got rid of his funny accent. He didn't have time for that. Well, I did it all. Yeah, it's all me doing stuff, flipping and catching an egg there. And so that's a lot of juggling in that, which I'm fairly good at myself. There was things that I didn't know why I did in the beginning, and then it made sense later. Like, it's supposed to when he sniffs wine, like everybody else goes like that. He goes like, just away from him. And that, I just did it to be interesting, to be honest. It was just something that's like, that's weird he's doing that, let's just do it for fun. And then you realize it does make sense. His nose is so sensitive. It has to be all the way out here, right?
Did you just smell me?
Difficult to avoid. So we didn't want him to be a classical psychopath. If that's the case, then we're going to dive into his past, what happened to him, there was something. And it becomes a banal story about, that could have been solved early on. But we kind of didn't like the idea of understanding his path. We just wanted him to be this, and not a classical psychopath. We wanted him to be a man with emotions and with empathy, but unlike the other character, the main character of the show, Will Graham, who has no control of his empathy. He's just too much of that. Hannibal has complete control when to have it and when to give it. But they're like a yin-yang situation, right? And that was the whole idea about the show, that they would circle around it. Eventually something had to happen, and so it did. The Hunt. Dag, jeg skal 2 koteletter.
Vi har ikke nogen koteletter.
Jeg måske jeg mener de der svinekoteletter.
Du kan ikke få noget her.
It was a frustrating read. It was immaculate, it was beautiful, but it was also very frustrating to read it because obviously I had this sensation of a man who was just cornered from everywhere and there was nothing he could hit. There was no one he could hit. He couldn't do anything. And that's exactly what we set out to do. I think that's one of the reasons why it's a very powerful film.
Den er ikke fra mig.
Ja. Jeg synes ellers, der står klaret på.
Så må det være nogen, der driller dig. Den er ikke fra mig.
I had a lot of scenes with a little girl, so it was important for us that she felt comfortable. And so whatever we did didn't rub off on her because somehow she had to run around in that world a little innocent, but also know just enough what the film was about. So I spent a lot of time with her, which was fun and made me forget the situation. Even though it's quite a harrowing experience to watch the film, they shouldn't really have the knowledge of what we're doing in that sense. I've always found it like an interesting way for an actor to forget himself. In a scene, we can start overthinking stuff, but if we just hang in there with whatever the kid is doing and just kind of follow that energy, we tend to become better actors as well. Rogue One. If I took my own life, it would only be a matter of time before Krennic realized he no longer needed me to complete the project. So I did the one thing nobody expected. I lied. I made myself indispensable, and all the while, I laid the groundwork for my revenge. We call it the Death Star. Ursa wasn't evil. He started out with good intentions, and then somebody took it over. Yeah, Star Wars. I created the Death Star. Boom. Yeah, I just did that. And then working with Felicity, it was an interesting because it was going back and forth in time quite a bit. And he said goodbye to his daughter when she was very little. No knowledge of where she went, and she had no knowledge of who he was, or was he on the dark side or on the good side. So that was quite a dilemma for them when they met up again.
I've seen your message. The hologram, I've seen it.
It must be destroyed.
I know. We will.
Look at you. It becomes very technical when you do it for 3 days in a row because there was so much involved with rain. Very hard to keep your eyes open when the rain is just pouring down. So, I mean, obviously you look at her and you see her for the first time in 20 years, and that's the same moment where you have to say goodbye to her again, which is quite emotional. And then before you get a chance, you're gone. So you try to play the situation. You can't really plan for it, and sometimes it goes in one direction, sometimes in a different. But when you're with a fantastic actress like Felicity, it helps a lot. Another round.
Prøv nu at slappe lige lidt af. Vi er jo ikke de første mennesker i verdenshistorien, der får lidt alkohol i løbet af dagen, hvis det er det.
Nej, det vil jeg.
Så Hemingway for eksempel. Han drak hver dag. Indtil klokken 8 om aftenen, og så stoppede han, sådan, så han kunne være helt klar til at skrive næste dag.
Jeg synes, det er spændende.
Det gør jeg også. It's a film about levels of alcohol intake. Quite early decided we're not gonna drink on set because we do know what it is to be drunk, but we were curious about the levels. Did we have them correct or not, like 0.05, 0.07? What happens? So we did a little boot camp where we tested out the different levels, and we acted out in one specific scene, and we repeated that again and again on different levels, and it was quite clear that after a certain amount, there was no communication with the director anymore. It was just 4 kids talking and nobody listening.
Det var... Hvad laver du?
Jeg kommer lige der.
En krabbe. Okay. Og den fanger jeg en torsk med.
And you get freer and freer, and then a little too free, and then back again. So all these things were very important for us to... I mean, we acted and we guessed a lot of it, but it was nice to have had that boot camp because there was things that were super clear to us when we watched it, but when you were in the midst of it that you had no awareness of, like hands. All of a sudden they get their own life, let's say after four beers. All of a sudden they just have their own life and you don't feel it. Death Stranding. Everybody told me that he was the godfather of that universe. He was trying to pitch it to us more than once. And we're both like, I think I got it, but should we just do the scene? And you can take over from there. Because there was so many layers in it. And when he was explaining it, Norm and I just did our best to nod at the right place and say, we got it, let's move on. Yeah, I've not even gone through 10% of it. I have no idea how to play that game like that. Again, we've dressed up in a green bodysuit, and we had dots everywhere, and we had wearing a camera. And luckily, I wasn't the only one. There was more people like that. So, but you do feel kind of ridiculous running around doing that. But his world is so so crazy. Everything was animated. He had a gigantic wall where he's been doing all the drawings of what it was going to look like. And it's just a world you have to just trust him. So we did scenes, but they could also move a little, and then he will always fix it later. He's one of these directors that was like just so grateful for everything we did. It's like even if we bumped our heads together, I was like, "Can we do it again?" And he was, "No, it was great. We can fix it later." And we kept forgetting that it was animated thing, right? Push.
Sparker du ikke til ham?
Der er sgu da ikke plads derinde, man, til at sparke.
Du kan da godt sparke ham derinde. Du skal da have cirkel. Ikke sparke. Så kan jeg se. Så stille og cirkel. Tag dem her. Noget cirkelspark. Du skal stå stille, mand. Det der, kom nu her.
Hvis du rammer mig, mand.
Pusher Trilogy is a film about Copenhagen. It's about the underbelly of Copenhagen, where I grew up. And the director did not want any actors in his film. He was one of these guys, was like everything authentic. And the producer said, you got to have at least 2 actors in this one because it's going to be too much of a handful for you. He couldn't find any. And he kept casting. He just didn't like it. There was too much theater in them. And I was in drama school, and somebody said, you should take a look at this guy because nobody understands what he's saying. He's just from that area of Copenhagen, and he mumbles, he's fast, and he liked what he saw. So I got the job. It was very rock and roll, and he deliberately asked us to help giving birth to this film. He knew what the story was about. He wanted to capture it, but he didn't know the universe. He didn't come from there at all. So that was cool for us. So we were 2 actors running around with a lot of criminals, shooting a film that was on a piece of paper. That energy of making films in that specific manner has always kept with me. You can't do it on every single film. That would be a disaster to do it with an Indiana Jones film. But the pureness and the cleanness of it, I think is worth bringing to every film if you can't in one dimension or another. So it's what I grew up with, and I will always cherish it. I think it was just a little rock and rolly, and it's like, that would be fun, that would be cool. Let's put respect in the back of his head. And I don't think I was so super aware that respect was ironic in the sense that there was no respect for this character whatsoever. It was a tricky thing to go back to a character that was so annoying. I mean, he was just very annoying to be around, also for me. There was a part of me that was like, I don't really want to do that, you know. But then shaved your head and you got the tattoo, and it's just like, I like him. He's such an idiot. Let's go. Valhalla Rising. No, I couldn't see anything. It was not see-through. It was just a prosthetic. And it was super annoying for a lot of reasons. I mean, we were in Scotland, so it either was raining constantly or it was just baking sunshine. But when it was baking sunshine, they had all these bushes in the mountains that were full of little animals called midges, like little biting kind of mosquitoes, but with jaws. And there was billions of them. Sometimes they got caught inside my eye when we did the prosthetic on set. So I would have like 5 or 6 little animals trying to eat me inside the eye, and I was constantly trying to kill them. Yeah, and it was a pain. It was a pain in here.
He talks.
Who?
One eye.
What's he saying?
That was again one of these things where it's hard because he was like in between a real person or he was like kind of a myth. We realized really fast that little normal things that people do, scratch themselves or fast movement reacting to something, that we couldn't really because we lost something interesting about the character. So we actually reshot the first 2 days when we realized that. So we went for like, and this is going to sound pretentious because I never do this normally, but we did go for an animal this time. We did go for a big gorilla in a cave that doesn't move like that. It's just basically he knows it's happening, and when he moves his head, it is very slow. And that we played around with a little, but we took away all the little fiddly things that normal people do. It's a strange film. It started like one thing on the paper, and it changed a lot once we came up there. This is one of the things that Nicholas, who also did the Pusher films, he can flip on a dime, go like, I hate Vikings, let's do something else, you know? And that's what we did. So we made a painting or a piece of music within the world of filmmaking. Bitch better have my money. I was there for 2 days. I think that's the only time I ever shot in America. All the American films I've done have been shot in Europe. So thanks, Rihanna. I finally got to shoot in America. I don't know how it landed. She must have seen, I never asked her, she must have seen something I've done. I believe it was something Danish, actually. She called my agent and it's like, do you want to be in a Rihanna film? And I was like, yeah, all respect to Rihanna. I'm not big in music, so I was like, I kind of could place her. And then I heard some music, oh yeah, she's cool. My son, for the first time, I think, was impressed with what I do. He wanted to come with me on set, and it's like, young teenager, I don't think so. And she was so sweet, and she's so good. And it became a really crazy video. I didn't like the pusher things in the sense that there was a story. I think we shot 10% of that story because it went in all kind of crazy directions all of a sudden. So it became more like an idea of this as opposed to a solid, clean story. And so it was very visual. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of being her bitch. That's fine.